everyone.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure to have all of you here. Today we're gonna have Marco talking about Jesus walks on the water. But before that, I'm gonna do the initial prayer and reading. So we're gonna read about Happy Life, the book Happy Life from Givaldo Pereira Franco by Joana Judge. Jesus said, "Do not let your heart be grieved," teaching that calmness and a belief in God should be the watchwords of any individual desiring to find happiness. There are always reasons for worry, disquieting the heart and perturbing life. Human existence is an opportunity to appreciate eternal riches in inner enlightenment. If you turn your anxieties over to God and trust Him with your life, everything will turn out all right. And if something disturbs doesn't occur, serenity will take charge of the situation and all will be well. For this reason, do not let your heart or mind be unsettled by unfortunate occurrences. Dear God, our Master Jesus, we thank you for the opportunity to be here today among friends to enlighten our lives with these studies of the Gospel of Jesus, of Spiritism. We ask you, God, to help us to keep our minds and hearts open for the lessons of today. So, Marco?
Good morning, everyone. Just a couple days. So today, we're going to talk about a very interesting passage that's contained in the Gospel of Matthew, and it's when there's a description of Jesus coming to the rescue of his friends, his disciples, during a storm. And during the time, we're going to hear about Jesus walking over the waters. And I think that's something that a lot of people can grasp the idea visually of someone walking over the water, something as a miracle, something that is cannot be explained otherwise, let's put it that way. And then we're going to have a little bit of a review of what Spiritism can explain to us and help us understand that. But not only that, we're going to go now a lot deeper into the context of Jesus helping his friends at the time and trying to give you a more in-depth look of what Jesus was trying to tell us at that moment, right? Because quite sure we know by now that Jesus wouldn't do something just to show off, right? That's not really the idea behind this, but because a lot of people get stuck on this and say, wow, see, Jesus can do this, he can walk over the water. And that turns out to be the most amazing thing in that passage, which is not, right? And it's typically like that. So I think one of the goals, let's say the essence of Spiritism in general, is to bring us the moral perspectives on the teachings of Jesus and rescue and extract that, like you're extracting some essence out of something, like you're doing like an orange juice, and you're trying to extract the taste, the energy. You try to take all you can from that little piece of story, right, that we're hearing over so many years ago. So I'm going to start reading a few sections of the passage, as this is in the Bible, and then we're going to go over it, okay? So it starts like this. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into a boat and go on ahead of him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up to the mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by waves caused by the wind against it. So let's try to picture this, right? So Jesus is working tirelessly with his disciples. going from city to city, town to town, village to village. And this community here is primarily a community of fishermen. And we talked about this last week when I was here. We discussed the idea of Jesus being part of this very tight community of fishermen, and how, and Paul and Stephen does the discussion about how could someone coming out of a fisherman village have the knowledge and have this incredible love that emanates from him, right? That would be like the Son of God, as they would call it. That was a conflict for them, right? To see how Jesus could do that, like a son of someone who were like a woodworker and stuff. So, I mean, to put that in context again, here we are. They live by the lake, right? Fisherman village. They're moving around. Then obviously they have to cross the lake. Picture like something like Lake Ontario. You have to go side to side, cross across, and obviously storms in that lake can be quite catastrophic. You can think about the type of vessel they used to ride on at that time, right? It wouldn't be a massive, 25-foot tall schooner, right? They wouldn't do that. There would be like a tiny little dinghy, right? Something that they could literally barely go through across, right? All handmade, obviously. So Jesus, finishing one of the meetings and the discussions of the teachings, goes to the mountainside and tell the disciples, just go across and wait for me. I'm gonna go after. And he goes to the mountainside to pray. And remember, he used to do that quite often. Like that's the time he had to meditate, to obviously reconnect. Remember when many descriptions he would reconnect to the previous spirits that came and incarnated before him and discussed very interesting topics about the law. Believe me, Jesus was really just like any one of us at a time. He wouldn't come to break the law, right? He would have his time to work. He would have his time to pray. He followed the law, right? That's exactly what he used to do. And while praying, he can see this, he can see the boat being hammered by waves in the lake. So, think about the story like this. Let's say someone in your family decides to hit the road in the middle of the storm. Would you guys be concerned about them? Right? It's an instinct, right? We are concerned. And would you try to do anything you can to mitigate that if you could, right? So, for example, if it's something that you would probably drive with them, or go with them, right? Or delay it, or offer shelter, or make some preparedness, right? So there's a lot of things we can do to help someone who's going through challenges, right? But now let's take away this idea of moving around in a car and a boat, okay? Let's talk about someone who is being hit against challenges, face on, like waves. They come and go. They hit you. They come and hit you again. They come and hit you again. Try to picture this now. Now, think about times in our lives that seems like everything we want to do, we're literally being hammered by obstacles and challenges. Right? It could be in work, or in family, or it could be health and disease. It could be, so many challenges that we have in our lives. This is our trials and expiations, and this is really what this world is about. That's why we're here for. Okay? So again, let's try to get away with the idea of a boat in the water. Let's think about ourselves and the challenge we go through, and think about Jesus looking at us, right? Not passively looking at us. He's actually thinking about each one of us. That's what he was doing in the mountainside, look at his friends. And he's just not going to sit there and say, okay, let these guys go through this waves, that's fine, let the waves heave down, it's fine. They'll discriminate, that's what we do in life. Right? They'll discriminate, I'll meet him on the side, that's all good, right? No, that's not how it works, right? And because we think about, particularly when we start learning Spiritism, we tend to develop this attitude about things, which is okay. We know things what happened, but it doesn't mean we have to make it worse, because it's all fine. That's how I show my faith. No, you don't show your faith by making things harder, right? You can have faith and make things easier, right? That's the goal. So Jesus is there looking at them, and he understands that for them, that's a very scary thing, right? So they're literally in the middle of that scenario with the waves in, the water coming in the boat. Kind of picture the confusion and the stress. It's night, right? I don't know if anyone of you had a chance one day to ride a boat at night in the lake, how it looks like. It's scary. You don't see anything, particularly if it's a large body of water. All you see is navigation lights, basically, and they blind you, right? So we have to follow. Either you have a nice GPS on your boat, and that's all good. All you have to do is kind of follow the little lines in the GPS. But if you don't have one, you have to find reference lights along the margins, so you can actually track. And then by if you go in the lake 100 times, then you know by heart, you know exactly where to go. But in the beginning, particularly if you're a beginner in the boat and in the lake, you're gonna find specifically points of light, right? That you can, if you're going a strict line to that part, you're going southeast or southwest, and you're going to be 10 miles off that particular position you have to go, and then you hit 30 minutes following that line, you make a right to follow the next line, and the lights, and then you're going to go exactly where you need to be, right? Very difficult to navigate at night if you don't have fancy equipment at the boat, okay? So this is where these guys are. So let's go back again. So Jesus is looking at them, and they're navigating at night without a GPS, rowing on 5-10-foot waves. And again, I'll bring that again. So I'm not going to forget to have had a chance to go in any boat. It doesn't matter. It could be like the ocean and a cruise ship or something. You can see how the waves can be they carry a lot of energy, right? Now, in a little boat, not only do they carry a lot of energy, but you don't have power to actually cut through the waves. So basically, if you're rowing on the waves, you're going to get water all over your boat. You're going to turn, you're going to capsize, because if you hit the boat on the eastboard side of the boat, you just flip side to the other. That's how mechanics go, right? So it's very scary, okay? So take all of that to our lives now. Again, this particular passage is not talking to us about waves, right? It's using the waves to teach you something a lot more interesting than this, okay? So it's telling us that in life, in this particular planet, we all got these little boats to navigate. Some of us, we got a little bit more because of what we've done before, and what we've learned, our accomplishments, our moral evolution. We may get a little beacon, a little flashlight to help us out. Sometimes we don't even have a flashlight. It's part of the trials. But we're all going to these little boats, and it's like we're going blind because we forget everything we've done, right? So we always have a guidance, and the guidance is always there for us. If you look up to the sky, there will be the moon, or if there's no moon, there will be stars. If there's no stars, there will be some lights on the shore. So there's always some guidance to us, always. It may be harder to find it though sometimes. And despair can hit very often because there will be storms. And that's one thing that's guaranteed in life. We are going to go through storms. So this fisherman in a boat actually represents each one of us in this particular incarnation. Jesus is the same. He's there. He's telling us, go. Have faith. I'm going to be right here for you. And whenever we need, he's literally going to walk on the water after us. He'll just go after us. That's exactly what he does. So what happened here in the story? Obviously, they're in a lot of stress, right? They don't have flashlights or anything, right? So literally, it's like pitch dark, right? And then there's water coming in the boat and all that. All of a sudden, Peter looks outside and he sees this ghost, as described in the text. Because realistically, what can you call? Someone like in the middle of the night showing up above the water beside your boat? Now you're scared about the water, you're going to jump in the water because there's a ghost behind you, right? It's like either or, like you can't really fight, you can't really win, right? So it's like either you crash on the waves or you like talk to this something that's just, I don't know. So this is quite interesting, right? It's not, because we think about this passage like he's gonna look and say, "Oh Jesus, oh, thank you for coming," and I was just waiting for you, and come on, you're delayed, man. But that's not how it goes, right? So first of all, like for any one of us seeing someone walking in the water, we'll probably freak out before we figure out what it is, right? But that's fine. So everything, Peter did the same thing, right? So you look at it all, just like this ghost-like figure coming, and then this is what he's going to say. So shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them. So Jesus is not, and this is exactly telling us what Jesus is. Because see, we only look at this text and say, well, he walked in the water. Okay, fine. He's super, right? But what he's telling us is not that, right? What he's telling here is like, Jesus went out to them, right? He's there, the mountainside, this little prayer thingy, right? They're saying, I'm going to help these people. This is exactly what he does for every one of us. It's telling exactly who he is, right? It's not just like this incredible, super powerful being that created our whole galaxy. This is a man that will do anything to love and help always, right? Because that's what his moral superiority. Like walking in the water, like blah. It's like the most non-interesting part of the story. Okay? But we're going to get there. We'll explain that too. And then Peter says, they saw him walking on the lake. Now, this is scary, eh? He's walking towards them. They're terrified, and they write this here. And then they say, "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. Now they're in trouble, right? So they know what to do. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage. It's me. Don't be afraid." This sentence should be the motto of our existences. And again, forget about the walking in the water here. Just pay attention to what he said. Take courage. It's me. I'm here with you. Do not be afraid. So if we transport that entire existence into our lives now, here we are, living on this planet in our little boats, having guidance in many different directions, but sometimes we can't really see it, right? It's dark. It's scary. Like I don't remember things well. Comes the knowledge that brings you faith. So comes the moral teachings of Jesus, Spiritist, Kardec, all the books that we're describing here. They start to give us a little bit of understanding. So we find a little beacon of light that now shines a little bit brighter than the others, right? So we can use this to guide our boats towards the other side of the shore. But you see, it gives us the light, it gives us the direction, but I can't move the boat if I don't actually do it physically. It doesn't matter. Like, you can have the most amazing lighthouse in front of you. And lighthouses, again, if you have one day experience, go in the lake at night. If you have like if you can pay for to go in a boat at night, one of those, whatever, just find an opportunity to go at night in a boat, and then look at the shore, the lights on the outside. Look at the sky. Kind of try to have an idea of what it is to navigate in that scenario, and then you may find some lighthouses and beams that will have the particular navigation lights, the red, the green, so you know exactly where to go, which side of the light you should pass. If you know a little bit about boating, you know what I'm saying. So it's an amazing experience because they're all there. You have to kind of figure it out where they are. But man, if you don't have if your boat doesn't have like wind to push, or if you're not rowing, or if there's no gas in the engine, you're not going to move anywhere. You're going to be staring at those lights forever, right? This is what we do. Okay? This is exactly what we do. We're here every Sunday, or we go to church every Sunday, or we go to whichever meeting that we talk about religious morals here in general. We hear about these beautiful beams of light that come and touch us. We grab onto them and say, wow, that's how I'm going to lead and direct my life from now on. But then my engine's dead. I don't move. Or maybe I roll 3 times, right? I do like 3 rows, and I move like a meter to that direction, but that's like, oh, but the light is too far away. My goodness, this is like 500 nautical miles from me, right? I can't do it, right? Jesus comes to us. See? Take courage. It is me. Don't be afraid. He actually walks towards us, right? But what's going to happen then? Let's say now Jesus came to the boat, right? So we're all panicking. He says that. And we're like, fine, Jesus here. Okay, good. So, right now you're probably thinking, oh my God, I was just like jump and hug Jesus, like, Jesus, yay, you know. No. You know what we're going to do? We're going to say, come on, Jesus, you know. Are you just prove me? Real? That's what Peter did. Peter says, Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water. Isn't that crazy? But that's us. So Peter here is doing exactly what we do. So here we are going through this massive storm in our lives, trying to find this beacon of light where to go, failing to put the energy behind it or to move forward. So we hear this inspiration of like, I'm here, take courage. We shut it off completely. It's like, I don't want to hear that. So that's what we do. So Jesus in its perfection, because think about it. Like you say, Jesus, like, people say, okay, you know what I mean? Okay, fine. Get your boat, fine. Deal with the water. I'm going to go back, great. No, Jesus is going to do this. They say, okay, fine. You want to come? Come. Okay? So Peter steps in outside the boat. And then this is what happens. See? Then Peter got down of the boat, walked on the water. So he was able to do it a little bit. But then he saw the wind. He was afraid, began to sink, and say, Lord, save me. Right? So Jesus tells them, you of little faith, why did you doubt? Why did you doubt yourself so many times? Why? The same question here. Forget about the entire story of the boat or the water. Just listen to what Jesus said. Why do we always keep doubting faith, love, us? Right? Because what Jesus is trying to tell us here is that, man, you got the power to do anything. You literally got it in you. The seed of the creation is all inside us. So we are co-creators. We are part of the creation, and we work together to change the universe. We can do things extraordinary. We can do extraordinary things, right? And faith is really what's going to keep you afloat here, right? But faith in action. Because you say, I have a lot of faith, but I'm going to sit here like a duck in this little boat and I'm going to sink with faith. Right? Isn't that what we do?
Yeah.
Right? So we say, oh my God, I have so first of all, I have a lot of faith. But when Jesus shows up and say, hey, come over, I'm going to say, prove me. Like that's totally faithful. Right? So I have a lot of faith, but I'm literally crying chicken with the water coming in the boat, right? I have a lot of faith, and then I'm going to say, yeah, sure, I have a lot of faith, but I'm not going to do nothing. I'm just going to sit here and wait for this beautiful beam of light transport my boat out to the other side. That's always what we expect, right? So we pray and we ask, right? So Lord, save me. In the end, he's going to say, Lord, save me. Okay, I'm done. Okay, I'm done. Save me, right? But we can't grasp that the answer is always beside us. It's always there. The help is always there. But sometimes what we want to hear when we pray is not exactly what we want, right? So it's like we receive something that's not exactly what we want, and then we might close the window, right? So like, okay, I don't want to hear that. Okay? So I pray, please, God, help me deal with the scenario, the situation. The next day, something happens, and you get this inspiration, or someone tells you something, or you feel something that tells you, like, you know what, give up all of that. Go do something different, you know? And then you say, no, that's not what I want to do. I want things to be exactly the way I want it to be. And then the waves keep hitting you, right? And then hit you again. And then hit you like for the 100th time. And then you say, okay, God, save me. I don't know what to do anymore. There's too many waves in this one. You know, that's it. See? That's kind of our continuous cycle of fighting with the universe, basically. With things that we have to go through, unfortunately, sometimes we have to go through challenges. We have to be open to receive the help. And Jesus is always going to be there. That's exactly what he's telling us here. Right? But then, Jesus, he stepped onto the boat, right? And, you know, obviously, then, he says, then those who were in the boat worshipped him, right? So say, you know, truly you are the Son of God. But this is the funny thing of the story, because these disciples represent so much us, right? Because that's what they're saying. Truly you are the Son of God. Why? Because he walked on water. That's what we think, right? No. Because this is a man that would do anything to help a friend in need. This is a manifestation of love that we see in this story, not really walking on the water. And then you can ask the question, so okay, how is that even possible that he can actually walk on water? So there's two explanations for that. One, which is, you know, plausible, is that he could, while in prayer in the mountain, right, he could have a property of condensation of the spirit to his spiritual body that will allow him to be touchable, visible, and he could be anywhere, in any place, at any time. He could talk to people, he could do anything he wants, but it was only his spiritual body that was visible at that time. And they would see that as him, right, as Jesus. The second possibility is that, yes, he actually physical body and spiritual body and spirit, went over the water because he can manipulate his fluidic energy to a point he could counterpose the gravity forces that he can actually, you know, lift from the ground. And that's very well known. For example, in the literature, in the Catholic Church literature for saints, there is a bunch of saints that were able to levitate, right? And there's very good descriptions of that. So levitation, in other words, counteracting the forces of gravity, is completely possible if you have the ability to use that fluidic energy and condensate it and concentrate it to a point that you can lift, right? So that energy will actually counteract the law of gravity. Is that possible? Absolutely possible, right? And really, that doesn't matter which one we went through here. There's two very well-known possibilities for that. Okay. Now, the second one is more likely because he ended up going into the boat to Gennesaret, which is the other side of it. So, you know, if it was only his very spiritual body, that would be very unlikely, right? Because he kind of continued the journey on the other side, right? So, but then, see, this is actually the easiest part to explain here in the story, right? So, for example, if you're a medium, you can lift objects by combining the fluidic energy from the medium with the spirit. They can feel an object with that energy and make the energy move with the wheel of their thoughts. That's exactly how the table moves when we were having the meetings in Kardec's time when he was writing the books. That's exactly why people like to play with those little games, the yes or no thing, that the spirit comes and moves things around. That's totally possible. All you need is to have someone that was able to expand and dominate that more humanized, materialized energy, so the spirit can use that to touch and give movement to objects. That's totally possible. The same way, a spirit like Jesus, who not only is able to do things like that, but also is able to, is the coordinator of the entire galaxy that we live in. He is totally capable of using his own energy to counteract the forces of gravity. That's no big deal. Okay? But not only that, he actually, when he walked into the boat, the winds died down immediately. So he was able to stop the winds at that time. Right? And there's nothing exceptional about this, right? Because the winds are part of law of nature, and there are spirits that coordinate nature too. So there's a group of spirits that all their function is to coordinate how Earth and our planet and nature, the functions of it are coordinated. So, for example, wind and seasons and things like this. There's all the spirits that coordinate details about how nature organizes itself, right? So, with the moral elevation of Jesus, he can actually help, through the help of many other spirits, stop wind, make wind comes, make light flows, make smokes and things. But he doesn't want to do that, right? He's not here to show up. But at that time, he felt it was important for him for two main reasons. Okay? First of all, there were people in need that needed to complete that mission. See, that's a mission that's planned out for thousands of years. So the disciples there, they were part of a very important mission to take that gospel, take that living gospel to Jesus to all the people around. So he didn't want them to freak out, fall in the water because they freaked out, and then they'll die, discarnate, and then the mission will be, problematic, right? So he could obviously use his abilities to quiet down the wind so they could complete their mission. It's totally possible, right? So he didn't want to do that just because he wanted to break the law. That's not the goal here, right? He's not, okay, I'm going to stop the wind now for everyone. That's not the thing. But most importantly, because the disciples had earned it. Okay? And that's the thing we don't get from the story, right? Because I'm pretty sure if I come here one day and say, Jesus, you got to stop that snowstorm outside, because it's bad. There's too much snow. It's going to hurt a lot of people. People can't get to TSS. How can we do that? No, the snowstorm is going to continue as it is, right? Because, first of all, as I'm looking at my own little egoistic perspectives of life, right? For me, that's a bad storm. But for the planet, might be exactly what they need right now. So I don't have the ability to understand that. And the second thing is that I have zero moral elevation, and I have not earned a single thing to ask Jesus to do anything for me. And I know that, right? So he'll probably answer my prayer and come here and say, you know what? Come down, Why don't you go there and shovel instead of asking me to stop the snowstorm, right? He's going to come, because he comes, right? Take courage. Don't be afraid, right? He's going to come. He's going to tell me to shovel, right? But then I'm not going to shovel, right? Because I'm tired. It's like, I just wanted to stop. I don't want to work, That's exactly what happens in the boat. Right? But in a scenario like this, where, there's the disciples are trying to go through, the winds are very strong, could he make that change and make the wind stop? Yeah, he could make any of that. He could make any changes in nature. He was the one that coordinated the formation of our planet. Think about him. The incredible amount of how much he earned with God, in other words, to decide whether or not things should change or not. He could do it. He could certainly do it. But he would not do it randomly, right? He would do it in very specific scenarios when the people involved not only needed it, but earned it morally, right? So the disciples did for sure, right? And the second of all, it's because it was something that was very important for the entire planet. So think about being important to the entire planet, the disciples living actually through that. That was very important, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't hear anything from Peter. So see, he made a change. Now, what about, so we think about this as a ginormous thing. Like, okay, the winds calm down. So let's think about our lives now. I like to bring back to our lives. Let's think about us, being late to work and things. That, I don't know if you guys have seen it happen with me. So here I am driving, I'm late to work, I may be going a little bit off the speed limit, And then I have this inner thing, it's like, why are you doing this? Just calm down. Slow down. It'll be fine. Don't worry. Okay? Do this. Just go. Right? And then I slow down, and then right in front of me, there's a massive accident. Someone calls a red light. This heat just basically destroys every car in front of me. I don't know. I give you that example, right? So that was a very good example of how things can be changed on a day-to-day basis to help out individuals and everyone involved in a particular scenario. How many people miss a flight that falls and just everybody dies? Like how many times this happens? Because for everyone that earned that's not supposed to be there, he's not going to be there. I can guarantee you that. No one dies by chance. Period. Okay. So Jesus is always there. Obviously not exactly there, but through many people that work with him, he's always there helping us every single moment of the time. And we're receiving this incredible amount of resources and help. We don't see it very often, right? We don't see it very often. But there are enormous numbers of examples where things were avoided, disasters was avoided for every one of us. But then you can say, well, but what about the other ones that ended up dying in the disasters? Well, I can tell you, no one dies by chance. Right? There's always a plan. And if it is part of your plan to discarnate early, I can guarantee you that the law is perfect. There's a reason for that. Because I know God's perfect. Okay? So now he goes into the boat. So he helped us through the storm. He went to help us. He gave us the light beam to follow, the path, the light. Right? All he wanted us to do is to have courage and move on. Because if you don't row your boat, you're still going to be there in the middle of the storm. Right? So when they crossed over, they landed at Gennesaret. And then the men at the place recognized Jesus. They sent word to all the surrounding county that people brought all their sick people to him. So, he was well known at that time, right? For healings, right? And begged him to let the sick just touch the edge of his cloak. And all who touched were healed. So we hear about the descriptions of the healings in the gospel. There's a few of them. But realistically, think about this. This is an individual that just arrived. Now, you can picture this. Picture yourself close to Mother Teresa, for example. Just being close. Like Mother Teresa's here, and you're here. How do you think you would feel? Just being in the presence of a spirit like that. Right? Now think about this. Think about Jesus here, and we're here. Think about how you would feel just being close to that spirit. It's overwhelming. And that's why these descriptions are important. Because the simple fact that he arrived in a place, he changed the entire atmosphere energetically around the whole place. People will recognize, people will feel connected to that. People will go after it. It's like a magnet. Right? And they would go there, and then all they wanted to do is to touch the little piece of the cloak. Like you see, it's such a beautiful and incredible energy that just being close, just being in proximity, it will be enough for people to feel it and change. Right? So that is Jesus. So he's the guy that would do anything to help someone in need. He will walk on the water, to help someone in need. He can calm the winds for you, but you got to move that boat. He can't do that. Because he cannot take away from you your free will. I'm sorry. Like, no one's going to come here and say, no, don't worry, I'm going to do all of this for you. It's not going to happen. And if we really want this, then we have to think twice about our existences, right? If all you're asking is that for things to happen for you, that's a problem, right? So this is the passage of Jesus walking in the water. And then I'm gonna go through just the one passage that I find very interesting here, and this is from both the Gospel according to Spiritism now, and also from the book Jesus in the Home, the chapter 4. So if you think about the passage where we're thinking about the man of faith and the lack of faith, and the idea of faith moving mountains around, right? That's a nice visual perspective on the importance and the power of faith, right? There's a lesson in the Jesus in the Home book called Lesson of the Seed, and this is by Chico Xavier, and I'm using the electronic version of it, but you can find it on a library, or you can get to Amazon. So Jesus is talking to the disciples one day, and he's saying this, that the divine kingdom is just like a tiny little grain of wheat, right? Which is kind of similar to think about like a mustard seed kind of thing, right? So it's a tiny little grain of wheat. It is nearly imperceptible when it's sown on the ground. So when you put it on the ground, it's like dust. You can't see it, right? It has to bear and clear all this garbage around it on the floor. Like, it's just so tiny. It's like it almost like barely touches the ground. And the weight of the soil. Like, nonetheless, it does sprout. Right? There's neither the pressure or impurities of the soil can stop its progress. It passes through the dark ground, although it takes most of its nutrients from it. Its drive to seek the light above holds sway. From then on, come rain or shine, day or light, it labors tirelessly to grow. And its eagerness, it multiplies for the good. So disciples who have felt this inner drive, as happens to the grain of wheat, know that long roots hold them to earthly inhibitions. They know that malice and suspicion shadow their footsteps. Pain is a constant threat. Even so, they feel, more than anything else, the drive to grow spiritually, and they can no longer be held back. On behalf of the general good, they continue to act within the sphere in which they are making their pilgrimage. They no longer encounter irresistible temptations amongst the flowers along the way. So, Lord, what then would you say? And this is now the disciples asking him. About those who understand the sacred principles of charity. So, people understand what we're talking about here today. But do not put them into practice. That's the question. This is for Simon. So I say, these, Simon, are the seeds that lie dormant, in spite of having been sown in the beautiful bosom of the earth. They contain the precious qualities of heaven, but they remain useless for a long time. Nevertheless, we may be absolutely certain that downpours and tempests will pass over them and will change their position in the soil. Just like in the boat that day, the storm changed how the disciples understood Jesus. Totally changed them. There was no chance. There's no storm by chance. It's not like that Jesus was waiting. It's like, fine, there's a storm. He knew it. He was the one that prepared that to happen. Right? So it changed their position in the soil, and they will sprout victorious someday. In our Father's fields, there are millions of such souls awaiting the renewing storms of life, so that they may hand down the glory of the future. Let us help them with love. And in our turn, let us press on with our eyes fixed ahead, just like you're driving your little boat, right? Forward to the other side. That's what we need to do. Okay? And just to summarize it now, there's this interesting song by Simon Garfunkel that calls Bridge Over Troubled Waters, right? And we heard that before. And I think it's, obviously, it's not a gospel song. It's not a perfect adaptation of a book type of song. But it brings a message that I think it summarizes well, what we're talking about today, right? So it starts like this: when we're weary and feeling small, the tears in our eyes, I'll dry them all. I'm on your side. Remember what Jesus said, right? I'm on your side. When times get rough and friends just can't be found, like a bridge over troubled waters, I will lay me down. So, remember Jesus? He actually did exactly that. He walked over, right? And just like he's laying himself down, so Peter could felt safe on that particular moment, right? So when you're down and out, when you're on the street, when evening falls so hard, I will comfort you. I'll take your part when darkness comes. And pain is all around. And then like a bridge over troubled waters, I'll lay you down. So that's the big summary of the story. Right? Jesus is always with us. Let's have faith and courage. He's asking us to do it. And let's take the action to move forward, knowing that there's always someone there looking out for us. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mark. We do have time for a few questions or comments, anyone? I think that came to mind. Yeah, always. I think that came to my mind as you were talking with Lei. I don't know if you guys already saw. There's many different videos on Facebook, YouTube, where the kid is there, kind of in the water and drawing, and then the mom just goes, "Hey, stand up." It's not that deep here. And I was thinking about it, and this image came to my mind. It's like us, right? Jesus is there, just say, "Hey, have a little bit of faith. Just stand up, and you're gonna walk."
No, that's absolutely right. I get seeing like thinking us as a kid. I always like to think that way because it's exactly what we are spiritually, right? So morally and spiritually, we're literally just like the 2-year-olds basically moving around and yelling and crying and complaining and this. But in the end, like we as a parent or okay, so Jesus looking at us and say, guys, calm down. It's fine. Things will move on, right? That's good.
Any other questions? Or comments? Anyone from the internet? Thank you, Mark. All right, so we're gonna get prepared for the fast. We're gonna finish our transmission. So thank everyone watching us for the internet. I invite you guys to finish with your own prayers at your homes. Thank you.